Hey, welcome back to That 70s Card Show. I'm your host, John Keating, and I thank you for joining me as I take a look back at the cards and the culture of the very colorful 1970s. We'll revisit a more simple time in our hobby by taking a deep dive into the sets and the stats with a generous amount of dad facts sprinkled in. That 70s Card Show is currently sponsored by nobody. If you have a comment or suggestion, I urge you to drop me a line at that70scardShow@gmail.com, 70s Card on Twitter, or that 70s Card Show on YouTube. We are obviously broadcasting on podcast format as well as YouTube format. And this is episode 76. And what are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about well, you know what? I'll leave that up in the air, but we're going to have a guest here. And before I bring our guest on, I'm going to embarrass him a little bit. His description in his YouTube channel says the first pack of cards I ever opened were 1980 Topps football cards. When I was 12 years old, I quickly learned that these little pieces of cardboard told stories. Long before the internet, I would spend countless hours studying the biographical info, stats, and cartoon trivia on the backs of cards as I learned about the players and the teams they played for. Cards tell stories about players, teams, and their place in sports history, but they also tell stories about the people who collect them. You learn a lot about people as their collection tells a story of who they are and where their passion for cards lie. Thanks for checking out my cardboard story. Of course, that is Chris from Stories in Cardboard, and I'm going to pop him on right now. Chris, how are you, man?
Hey, John. Good. How are you?
Good. I don't know whether you're drying your eyes or whether your fists are balled up in anger for reading that, but I think that says a lot
I think
about a
that's
lot
about
of
a
us.
wrap.
Yeah, that's it. Well, thanks for coming by. Appreciate it. Gift. There's a gift bag for you in the green room. That says a lot about I think a whole generation of collectors. I can't speak for the folks that came along in the 50s or the 60s, but for the 70s and early 80s, as you speak of, man, that kind of sums it up. And I think that's brilliant. Tell me you just didn't. Tell me you plagiarized that and took that off of some other
I did.
site.
I did not. That was all me.
That's all
That's
you, huh?
that's basically just how I feel.
Yeah.
It was kind of my experience as a child with cards.
Yeah. Now, as it's been said by others smarter than I, nobody grows up, nobody starts out as a vintage collector. You grew up in an interesting time there for sure.
Hey,
If
John.
Yeah,
Can we pause this for just one second? I have a couple of cats that are kind of acting up.
bring them on, man.
If
I'm
you'll
gonna
give me
leave.
just 1 minute.
All right, man. You come back when you're ready, and I'm just gonna talk. So Chris is gonna go herd cats, and I think that I tell people for much of my for what I do for a living is herding cats. And for those of you who know, it's sometimes life is herding cats. Cats don't care. Cats can be dicks, as we say, but cats also give us a lot of comfort and joy too. But I'm not going to disparage Chris's cats too much. But I don't know how you are I don't know how you become a or continue to be a sports card collector. Chris, I was just about to say one of the questions I'm going to ask you now is I don't know how you can collect cards and be a cat person because to me, cats don't care about stacks of cards, I would think. Um,
We have one that tries to claw the boxes,
oh,
so
yeah,
we have
I
to take
forgot about
precaution.
that. Yeah, yeah. I'm worried about knocking stacks of cards over and they're going to claw and chew away. So
Yeah,
I kept going, man. I didn't stop because I'm just going to keep going.
sounds good. Let's go.
So 1980, how old were you in 1980 when you opened up that first pack of cards?
I had just turned 12 years old.
Okay, so you and I were born in the great year of 1978. I'm probably a little bit older than you.
68.
Yeah, yeah. So you were you collecting you happened to open a pack of football cards. Were you specifically looking for football cards or was that the time of year that you became aware? And I assume maybe baseball came later or what was the deal there?
Yeah, so as a lot of kids did back then, I played a lot of video games.
Okay.
And
Asteroids, Defender.
yeah, all those good ones. Yep. And my mom worked at the local mall. So it was Christmas break, and I'd gone to the mall, had my quarters, and was heading to the back of this store where they had an arcade. And as I was going back there, I'm, kind of running back there, and the box with the cards just kind of caught my eye.
Right.
And I just kind of stopped and said, huh. And they were 25 cents a pack.
Okay.
And I think I bought 2 packs to begin with. And you'll notice the Tony Hill card that I show. That was the first card I remember
Okay.
as I was opening those packs.
Wow.
But when I opened those first 2 packs, I was just kind of hooked right away.
It's amazing. I mean, I think you're kind of a late bloomer because
Yes.
for there was a lot of baseball was everywhere. Baseball cards were everywhere when I was growing up. Where did you grow up, or where did you purchase this pack? As far as what region?
The South, North Carolina.
So maybe that has something to do with it. I grew up in a baseball city.
Yeah,
Obviously, we know North Carolina is basketball country. So,
yeah, very
what
much.
what sport did you gravitate towards first? Do you think? And not
Um,
just collecting, but in your fandom
yeah.
or
So my family was a little bit different. My father did not watch sports at all.
okay,
And my mother kind of grew up watching sports, but I don't remember her watching when I was really young. And then one day or one year, we watched the Super Bowl, and
huh?
it was Super Bowl 11, the Raiders versus the Vikings.
Yeah,
So I
Madden.
can actually remember the very first sporting event that I watched, and it
Wow,
was that one.
that's great, man. That's actually fun because I don't remember my first exposure. So for you to remember that, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, most don't because they kind of grow up
True.
watching sports,
Yeah.
but that was not my case.
You know what's amazing for a male-dominated hobby? Um, most of us are exposed through our mothers. Like my mother was the sports fan in my family. My dad was a son of Irish immigrants who knew nothing about sports, but it's neat to see that. I hear that more and more often. We can blame the moms. They're the ones who threw our cards away, but they're also the ones that turned us on to this thing to begin with, right?
Yeah, my mom never threw them away. She bought me quite a few.
You had a smart mom. That's
I
why.
did. I
Yeah.
did.
So 1980 again is kind of a shoulder year for the hobby. Did you 1981? I guess the next year from when you bought that pack of cards, all hell would break loose in the hobby. Did you
Yeah,
catch any of that? Were you on the ground floor with Fleer and Donruss and all that in '81?
I did. I didn't know anything about the court case or anything at the time.
Right.
And after the football, I actually bought basketball cards as well
Oh,
before baseball.
okay.
So it kind of went football, and then I bought the 80 81 Topps basketball cards as well. And of course, I perforated
Yeah,
all the
you ripped them.
cards because
Yeah.
that was the smart thing to do.
Yeah, it was
And
fun to do too. I mean, it was right there, right? Pretty.
yeah, yeah, I still remember the stacks I had kind of sitting on the front porch, actually
Right.
perforating them.
Right. Oh my
And
God, we were such idiots. Or I
yeah,
blame
we,
Top
we
for
were
that, right?
very smart.
What are you going to do? It's like don't touch the oven. We touch the
Yeah,
oven. You're not going to
exactly.
leave non-perforation out there. It was meant. It's like bubble wrap. It was meant to be popped, right? So,
That's exactly right.
you get to choose at the age of whenever you got fell head over heels for sports. You got to choose all your teams. Unlike somebody like me, I was stuck with my teams.
Yes.
Tell me tell me to this day, I want to know what your preferences are in sports and then give me the teams and why.
Okay.
So what's your number one football team? Do you have one?
Well, right now it would be the Carolina Panthers.
But growing
Just,
up, right?
but growing up, it was the Dallas Cowboys.
Oh my gosh. No
Yeah,
wonder. Yeah, you see, I had this theory that you and Terry Mack are the same person, but you're just
yeah.
really good with accents and
We've worked on it.
all right, so Cowboys, I can understand why. I don't agree, but I can
They,
understand
they,
why.
they kind of force it on you when you don't have a local team, and
Uh-huh.
you kind of get one team over and over. And
Is that your number one
yeah,
sport as far as throughout your life that you've been a fan of?
I actually, again, like you said, well, like you mentioned earlier with the college basketball. Um,
Okay.
I grew up. My first real love was the North Carolina Tar Heels,
Okay.
and no cracks with the Villanova championship game. Thank you.
Oh, that was barely a game, but okay.
We just kind of,
Yeah.
blocked
Hey,
that out of ever actually happening.
what a
So,
time to be a kid, huh? Like they
oh
were,
yeah,
Perkins and Worthy and Jordan and
Jordan. I
crazy, man.
literally got to see all of Michael Jordan's games in
Did you?
college. Not in person, although I did see several in person. But as far as TV, I saw all of his games while he was in North Carolina.
Amazing, huh? I mean, that was I was a huge college basketball fan in the '80s, much more than the pro game, and it was a wonderful time in college basketball. Obviously, pro basketball would follow suit because all those great college players like Jordan and Elijah and Ewing, Bird,
Chris Mullin.
Magic, Mullen, right? They would all just it's amazing. It was a wonderful time. The sport just blew up. So I agree, and I still prefer to watch. Although it's waning a little, I still prefer to watch college basketball. But
Well, I've heard you say before, and I'm kind of like you in this regard. Sports has kind of waned on me a little bit anyway. Today's sports,
mm-hmm.
um, it's just not the same for me.
Right.
I still watch some. I don't watch nearly as much as I used to, but I'm more interested in the history of sports right now.
Yeah. So let me ask you about that. You're again. I'll mention Terry as well. But between you and Terry, I learned so much about cards, and it's been a massive influence on me. When did you when did you decide to go back? But more importantly, when did you decide to go deep, deep back? Because you tell some stories about cards that are absolutely amazing. When did you make that turn? And then you didn't just you put the pedal to the metal, man. You went full force. When did you make that turn back into the 50s and 60s and the more obscure secondary sports stuff like football and hockey?
Almost immediately.
Okay. So
So
you were aware right off the bat is what you're telling me.
yeah, so here's what happened with me as far as vintage cards. Bought the first packs in basically December of 1980. Started taking some of those cards with me to school, and I
Mhm.
had a classmate that saw me playing with the cards, if you will, and they told me that their father had some cards. They ended up bringing me their father's cards and just gave them to me. And they were basically they were basically a few 1955 Bowman football.
Man,
Mostly they were 1956 Tops football, and then a little bit of 1957 football and baseball sprinkled in.
that's crazy. I can't imagine a
Yeah,
12-year-old being trusted or entrusted with that, man.
right.
Absolutely incredible. Because I probably got a little bit after that. I probably started looking into it, but you know, that's just crazy. So there wasn't a lot of research material available back then, especially for football.
Uh,
What did you? How did you track down more of these cards? I imagine it was a very long process of tracking down checklists and then. Uh,
yeah, so when I got those cards, I instantly just started reading the backs
mhm,
because one, I was trying to figure out what year they were from.
right.
And so I was kind of reading the information on the back to see what year they might be from. As I'm doing that, I'm just learning all this great information about all these players, Elroy Crazy Legs Hirsch and
Yeah.
Bobby Lane and people like that.
Yeah.
And it's, it just fascinated me. And so even with the modern cards, I still would read the backs. It just kind of always interests me learning about the different players and just kind of, you're kind of a young sports fan at that point. So you're
Right.
just starting to learn who the really good players are.
Now, there's two things I'll comment on that. One is you could as a Cowboys fan, you can kind of look back without prejudice because there were no Cowboys back then in the 50s, right? So you can
Right.
read that without any bias. You can research all those things, which is pretty neat. And then the second thought I had completely left my head. Truth be told, uh, my question to you. Oh, here it was. There were no stats on the back of those football cards either back then, right? The
So for the
50s.
56, it had the year stats, so the previous year
Okay.
stats,
All
and
right.
then lifetime stats.
Because football, unlike any of the other sports, I think if you're going to if you're into all the football cards, as we know, the linemen typically don't have stats, especially the offensive linemen. So there's a lot more words on the back of football cards, I think, than some of the other sports. That's for sure.
Yes, and even the position players, their stats were not like today's stats or even stats in the 70s and 80s.
Right. Now, I am full fledged on board in the last 6 months or so, or year, thanks to you and Terry. And I will yell to anybody who will listen that football cards from the 50s and 60s were way more gorgeous than their baseball counterparts. And I think you'd probably agree with that, but you'll probably also say hockey as well, I would imagine, right? Because you're way into that old hockey stuff as well, aren't you?
Yes, I think both of those, and especially for me, I'm really, and what I'm pursuing right now is collecting the sets of the early Bowman football cards because I just think they're amazing. The artwork is incredible, and I love the artwork of the early '50s baseball as well. But the football, the poses and the images are just different.
Yeah, yeah, for
They're,
sure,
they're
man.
so they're so intense, and they're just different. And so yeah, I agree with you there. I believe the football cards are some of the greatest looking cards that were designed, and hockey may be even better. They're just beautiful.
Did the Bowman football, did they mirror the baseball sizes of the same years? Because I know Bowman changed sizes several times. Did they follow suit with football?
They did. They
Okay.
pretty much followed exactly the same, other than in 1952, the football had a small version and a large version.
Okay. So, how did a boy from North Carolina get into hockey? Was it strictly the aesthetics, or were you chasing the aesthetics of the sets, or were you a hockey fan?
1980 U.S. Olympic team.
Wow, man, good call out, huh?
Yeah, that was really my first exposure to hockey. And not that I fell in love with it, but of course, everybody kind of fell in love with it if you were alive at that
Right.
point.
Sure. Yep.
And, but I wasn't a huge NHL fan, but I would watch a little bit, kind of here and there. And then just kind of later, I really enjoyed the hockey cards.
Man, that's crazy. Yeah, you don't find too many people in the hobby that are as well rounded as you are. I don't. Perhaps I'm wrong. I don't see as many vintage basketball videos from you. Or you? Is that something you're into at all? Or am I just missing it? Because I remember hockey and football more than
Yeah.
anything.
So I do have a vintage basketball collection, but I have not added to it in a pretty good while actually, and it's mainly because I'm more focused on the baseball, football, and hockey.
And you know what? No offense to basketball, but their cards don't have the beauty. I think that some, especially there weren't a lot of cards way back in the day of basketball in the 50s and 60s, but it's
Right.
hard to compete with football and hockey, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well,
So
I just think football has a tremendous history.
yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, they were all, and we're going to talk a little bit about 70s football here. Just the characters, like these guys didn't look like, you looked at Willie Mays and Mickey Mantle, and you knew those guys could hit baseballs. But you look at some of these guys later on in the 60s and 70s, and they look like they drove beer trucks, right? They
Right.
didn't, and yet these guys were out beating the crap out of each other. A lot of two-way players, all that stuff back in the day.
Let me see if I pulled this one card. I know I intended to pull it. Let me see if I actually pulled it. Yeah.
Oh, look at that, man.
That does not look like your typical running back in the NFL.
That looks like Robert McCracken, my middle school gym teacher right there. Yeah, that guy wasn't,
Right. Yeah.
that's crazy, right? And by the time I guess we can talk about what we're going to talk about here. We're going to talk what set are we going to talk about or go into depth here, Chris? Let me know the set and then you have to tell me why you picked this set.
Okay. Yeah. So I picked the 1976 Topps football set. And like you probably already know, that is my favorite sport to collect. So I definitely wanted to represent that. And for me, 1976 kind of represents a, I think these cards kind of represent what it was like being a collector back then.
Right.
You know, it was a very, very simple design. And, but I think it's one that definitely appealed to kids. And that was the kind of the target audience was actually kids back then, right? It wasn't
Right.
adults, it was children.
Yep.
And so for me, I love football on there. I love the football design. I think it just kind of screams mid 1970s. Hey, we're trying to get kids to buy these things.
When's the last time?
And for
Oh,
me,
sorry about that.
no, go
Uh,
ahead. Go ahead.
there's I was doing some reading on this set, and apparently a football hadn't been on the front of the card in a very long time. Was it 1960? Do you think 1960
Not,
tops? Was that?
yes, 1960 tops.
It's quite a gap when you're the only sport that has, just by shape alone, such an iconic uh, image of what your sport is. Football. We know what a football is. What, no matter whether it's a silhouette, just by the shape, right? A ball is a ball.
Yeah.
Otherwise, so.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, an interesting choice there. You're right, and it screams out football, and you see it, and you don't. You're right. It's attractive to kids for sure.
Yeah. And for me, being someone that likes trivia and kind of biographical information, it's got a ton of that.
Yep.
And I just love it. And to me, it has the most important card of the 1970s, the most iconic card.
Any sport or
I
football?
think so. Yes.
Okay. Well, you probably aren't wrong there, because there, one of the slags that the '70s gets is that there's no, there's no Mount Rushmore cards, but for sure, you have a deeper knowledge of football cards than I do. But my generation and your generation, I don't think there's any more iconic card from football card from the years we've been alive. That's for sure.
Right.
I wouldn't. Yeah, I wouldn't. I can't keep track of the modern stuff, but as far as that '76 Walter Payton card is the most iconic football card of my lifetime, and there's been some great players throughout the years, but I don't think you can argue that at all.
Definitely the most iconic from the 70s for
Yep.
sure, in my opinion. And I don't think there's a baseball card that touches it as far as being iconic
You're
and
right.
a staple in the hobby.
You're right. And the sales will tell you that, I guess the Gretzky 79-80, that probably outperforms this one, but baseball is down on that list. Maybe even I did a thing a while back. It's either third or fourth. The best baseball card is either the third or the fourth out of the big four sports, and that's probably the Schmidt card.
Yeah, I would say.
So another thing about, you talked about design. One thing I love about football cards throughout Tops's history specifically is the backs of the cards weren't, they weren't following the formula of baseball cards. The coloring is different, all that stuff. And I think that I like to look at the 58 Tops was a precursor to the 59 Tops baseball. It seems like whoever was doing football, they were just kind of doing their own thing. I'm not saying every design was great, but it's neat that they weren't just. Later on, I think we would see the packaging of football cards in the same design as baseball cards or vice versa. And that disgusts me, but at least there was some originality going on with these cards. That's for sure.
Yeah.
I'm going to talk a little bit about the distribution of these things, right?
Okay.
Got some rack pack, wax pack, cello pack, all that stuff. 36 packs in a box, 15 cents a pack for 10 cards. Those are the wax packs. Of course, they were apparently there was I guess on the side of the wax packs you could send away for either the football poster or the card killer lockers that I absolutely
But kept your cards nice and mint, right?
yeah, the top part was flat, but as you wedged them in there and all that stuff, they got all boogered up. Cello packs, 18 cards for 25 cents. Rack packs, 42 cards for 49 cents. They did have vending boxes, but obviously you didn't buy any of these in real time. I did, but I don't have any recollection because I know that I had a Walter Payton rookie card that I sold a couple years ago along with the rest of my 76s for some reason. Big regret. But yeah, it's I don't recall buying them, but I know I did because I had that Peyton rookie card from the get go, and it didn't become obvious to me that it was anything until probably the mid to late 80s, because baseball was my primary jam,
Mhm.
that's for sure. Uh, Goes through the roof now, right? I don't know how you acquired most of your 76 cards, but if you try to buy anything unopened, you're going to get slammed because, for obvious reasons, everybody's looking for that Walter Payton. How did you get your Walter Payton rookie?
Well, I had one that I sold maybe about 3 years ago to upgrade. And so this is the one I currently have.
Let me get that up there. Hold on a sec. There we go. PSA, what is that, a 6?
A five.
5? Okay. It's a nice card, man.
Um, so the other one that I did have, it was probably about very good, excellent. It was a raw card.
Raw card.
And I don't know when I got it, but I'd had it for a while.
Right.
And just kind of, I tend to kind of upgrade stuff as I go when it kind of suits what I'm trying to do.
Gotcha. Now, while we're there, what you have to have a card that you'll never get rid of, right? A coffin card. Do you have that in your mind?
I do.
And what's the story? What card is it, and what's the story behind that?
1956 Topps Mickey Mantle.
Wow. Now, how'd you get that?
Um, just bought it. Probably bought it about 4 years ago, I think.
And it's slabbed, I assume, right?
Yes. Yeah, it's a PSA 5.
Okay.
It's a card that I always loved. The first time I saw that card, I just thought it was the most perfect card.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just perfect Mickey Mantle card.
Perfect season too for him, right?
Yeah.
56.
Triple
So,
crown. Right.
yeah. Yeah, it's a gorgeous card, that's for sure. Are there any players in particular that you go after? You collect any players like that? You try to get all the Mantles, or you're more into the actual individual cards? What's your game?
Yeah. I'm more of a set collector for them, I would say, but I kind of chase just cards that I like. And once I get to a certain point, then I'll say, okay, I'm close enough to where I can actually kind of attack that and work on that set.
Gotcha.
Which is kind of what I do. Now there are some players like I'm pretty close to having the full run of Johnny Unitas cards.
Okay.
There are certain players that I like. I have quite a few Mickey Mantle cards, not all of them.
What's the while we're there? I'm sorry, I keep seeing squirrels run by, and I got to ask you questions. Unitas, was there any, like there was in the 50s with baseball? Was there any contractual holdouts for any of these sports cards, or was Unitas in all the football sets regardless?
Well, if there were, it was probably in the early 50s with
Okay.
with Bowman and Topps kind of competing.
Oh, so they still had that thing going,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
okay, I got you. Yeah, because there aren't a lot of Topps Mutual cards, so I'm trying to think of like.
And well, as I say that, that's not really right either because Topps didn't make their first NFL cards until 56 and Bowman was done with that. So,
And when's Johnny U's rookie card?
57.
And he has a run all the way up to what, 73 or 74?
74.
And he's San Diego Chargers in that
Right.
card, isn't he? Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's
Now,
got
I do know Joe Namath had some contractual things.
Okay, I got you.
Because his last card was 73, and he stopped or play. I think his last year was 77.
Gotcha.
But his last card was 1973.
Now, you know anything about the Earl Campbell deal? Why did Earl Campbell?
I don't know. I'm not sure what happened with that.
So
I do
weird.
know I was a huge Earl Campbell fan when I was a kid.
Right.
So in 1980, I'm opening packs and I am looking for an Earl Campbell card. Just tearing these packs open, really hoping that probably of all the non-Cowboys, that's the card I wanted. And of course, he wasn't in there.
So he had two cards. Was it 79?
So he actually had three. So he had the regular card, the record breaker, and he was also
the team leaders. Yeah. I got you. I didn't know about the record breaker. I knew about the team leaders. That's a 4-player card or whatever, right?
Yeah.
All right, back to 76. I'm sorry, sir. So we're going to talk a little bit about that set. And let's see here. I'm going to bring up some visual aids because I'm so horrible at this. 528 cards. I don't think there's any corrected errors in there, right? It's just a set. We have record breakers 1 through 8, and there's a couple well-known people in there, like Blanda. I think OJ's in there, right?
Yeah.
Um, Neil Colsey's in there for punt returns. I don't know what that was all about, but congratulations to him. Chuck Foreman, another great running back from the 70s who I guess he caught 73 passes, which was a big deal for
Yeah.
running backs. But that kind of baffles me because of, it used to be a running back game, and they didn't really start airing it out, I guess, until the 60s that much with the Chargers. But it surprises me that he broke a record for that.
Yeah.
Jim Marshall, 26th fumble recovery. Terry Metcalf, most all-purpose yards in the season. I guess that surprises me too because of the, I guess, punt returns and kick returns. And OJ, 23 touchdowns. That's a pretty big deal, huh?
Yeah. That was a huge number. Now, what is my favorite one? I actually like the Jim Marshall one the best.
Yeah.
And the reason is, I kind of think it tells a story. This is his record card for 26 fumble recoveries, which for a career was the most for a defensive player. And you
Right.
think about what Jim Marshall was known for, right? What is he known for?
I think he was known for running the wrong way on a blocked
Running the
field goal, right?
wrong way on a fumble recovery.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Was that a fumble or a blocked field goal? It was a fumble?
It was a fumble.
Okay, yeah. Amazing play, huh?
I believe it was a fumble.
Okay.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
it was a fumble. Billy Kilmer fumbled.
Okay. Billy Kilmer fumbled. Okay.
Yeah.
I got you. Yeah.
And so I just find that interesting. And to me, Jim Marshall should be in the Hall of Fame. I mean,
He's not in the Hall of Fame?
he's not in the Hall of Fame.
That astounds me. I'm going to share my screen here if I can. That astounds me because he played a long time, did he not?
He had the most consecutive starts in the NFL until Brett Favre broke his record.
That's crazy, man. I
Yeah.
can't believe, is Carl Eller in the Hall of Fame?
Yes, Carl Eller
And
is
Jim Marshall's not, huh?
not in the Hall of Fame. Now, what's
Well,
interesting, and during that game, the game where he ran the wrong way, the Vikings actually won that game. I mean, people act like it was a thing where they lost the game, but the
right,
Vikings won that game. Not
right.
only that, but right before that, I think I don't think it was the drive before, but maybe 2 drives before, Jim Marshall caused a fumble that I believe it might have been, it was either Eller or Alan Page picked it up and ran it back for a touchdown.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah.
that's interesting, man. Wow. Who was the first guy on the scene to tell him he was going the wrong way? Do you remember? Because I
Might have,
remember.
I think it might have been his coach, Norm Van Brocklin, because when he came to the sideline, Van Brocklin said, Jim, I think you just did the most interesting thing in the game today.
And you know what's great about it? Unlike many of the other things that have happened in sports, like Wilt's 100-point game, is there's plenty of footage of that play,
Plenty of
thanks to
footage, yes.
NFL films and stuff like that. So we're lucky to be able to revisit that, and I'm going to go watch that after we're done here. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the cards here, again, I like the backs of the cards. Again, I like the orange, I like the blue and the gray. I think along with the league leader cards, the borders of these certain special cards have the dimples of a football, which is a pretty neat, touch there by the designers. Have we seen that before on football cards?
I don't think so.
No.
I think that might have been the first year. If there was one, it's not really coming to memory right now.
Yeah. It's a nice touch, and it's amazing that it took that long, right?
And it's kind of, again, it's one of those things that kind of takes you back to that time period.
Yeah, for sure. Talk a little bit about some of the design here again. Fun cards, white borders, some piping around there. The football that we speak of, with a team name in there. I've got Ron Yeri up on screen here. Ron Yeri was one of those mythical guys when I was growing up because he
Yeah.
seemed to be an all-pro every year. Him and John Hanna, I guess, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
was Hanna a guard or a tackle? He was either a guard or a tackle. I forget
He
which
was a
one.
guard.
He was a guard. Okay, but these guys were always all pros, and they're all pro. Selections were called out on the front of the cards. Pretty fun there. League leaders
And
there.
I love the design for the All Pro for 1976.
Yeah,
That I think that's a great design that really makes those cards pop
yeah,
for the guys that were All
yeah,
Pros.
for sure. Fun. As with most cards from the 70s, and they got a little bit away from that, obviously, in the 70s when they started taking more pictures at training camp, and then they would have in-game shots, typically not live action, but stuff on the sidelines and warm-ups. There were some action shots here as well, but yeah,
There were a handful of in not many, but a few.
yeah, for sure. And this is we love our drunk uncle talk, but Jim Otis and OJ
Yeah,
Simpson on the same card together. It's hard to believe that they were both rushing leaders. And hard to
yeah.
believe that the Cardinals, a Cardinals player led the league in rushing yards, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Checklists, we have team checklists, which they've managed to squeeze many of the most beautiful things in there. The football is up there again. On the back is the football helmet with the number on it. I think that's on every player's card. And then the old school Tops logo, which that wouldn't show up on baseball cards for the first time until '79, I believe. It was on the front of a card. Yeah. So again, football kind of leading the way there for us. What do you think about this? We had our team checklists,
So
which had
I love these, and
you like that, huh?
the reason I love these is the back. It has
Right.
so much information. It gives you all of the team leaders going back to 1969.
Yeah.
And again, as a kid, that's where you got your information. These were little miniature encyclopedias, or this is how you got your information for who did what. Well, it was the back of these cards.
That's a great point. And my first instinct is, as a collector, I think I'd rather have checklists, and then for the team cards, football at some point got away from team photos. I'd rather have a team photo on the front.
Oh
So when was the last time we did team photos? Was it in the early '60s? I guess for football, right?
yeah. So let me think.
Maybe '63.
63,
Yeah.
1963.
And they weren't the most beautiful
Good
things because they usually cropped out the background on those team photos, if I recall.
Yeah, and
But
they were kind of crude looking,
yeah, yeah,
but I love team cards just because, again, they kind of tell the history of what was going on with that team. And you can really find some interesting things on team cards that you wouldn't normally see. Like, for example, 1956 Tops, if you look on the Baltimore Colts team card, it has Don Shula on there.
there you go, man.
And the New York Giants card has Tom Landry
Landry.
and Vince
Yeah.
Lombardi.
Who was the head coach of that team?
Oh, who was it?
Imagine that coaching tree, right?
I'm not sure who the head coach
Yeah.
was for the Giants that year.
What year? What year are you saying? '56.
56.
That was the Colts Giants. Was that the big game? The big
No,
championship game, or no?
no, 58.
That was
So
'58. Okay.
56 was Giants versus the Bears.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, the backs of these cards, Colts yearly leaders. And one thing that we tend to forget about when we collect, we tend to forget or fail to recollect that there's in this set alone, there's I think at least 5 teams that by name don't exist anymore. The Colts,
Mm,
right?
yeah,
St. Louis Cardinals, San Diego Chargers now, Oakland Raiders now, and the Houston Oilers. There may be more, but I that's something that we tend to forget about as these franchises move. That
mm,
Earl Campbell was a Houston Oiler to us, and will never be anything different, right?
right, right. Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah, and yeah, it was, and your point to these were our Googles back then, the backs of cards,
Yeah.
and it was fun to see regardless of the sport, it was fun to see players or how recently some of these team records were broken and stuff like that. It's wow, look at that. Liddell Mitchell's on the back of there. As storied as that Colts franchise
Mhm.
is, Liddell Mitchell's on the back of there. So
Yeah.
fun stuff.
Yep.
Let's move on through the set here. Uh, Same thing with the football pattern for the Super Bowl champs. And again, in the context of the times, I think this is where the NFL started to take off and come out of the shadows. You're more of a fan of football history than I am, but those Steelers Cowboys matches, right? And then the Raiders were in there, like you said, the Raiders and the Vikings, and then the Steelers again. It was fun seeing football kind of take off, you know.
Yeah.
And yeah, so there we go, AFC Championship, NFC Championship, and one thing we see in here, which we know of from the '70s, is a lot of airbrushing. Imagine the work that these artists had to do every year, airbrushing not a player but multiple players, like in this NFC Championship game, there's at least 3 or 4 players in there that stars are wiped from their helmets, and then I think they just went the Rams. They just ended up painting their whole helmets yellow right there. So
Yeah. And maybe kids were smarter than I was, but I could not figure out why there were no team emblems on the helmets. I could not figure it
right,
out.
right.
You would open the packs, it's like, why are there no logos on the helmets?
And you know what's crazy? As a young boy who dabbled in the Pittsburgh Steelers dynasty, it really confused me because they only had the logo on one side of their helmet, so I couldn't tell whether I'd
Right.
have to think about every Steelers card to figure out whether that was painted off or whether that's just the side that doesn't have the logo. Do you know the story about that? Is there a story behind that, Chris? What?
Just licensing.
No, I apologize. Why the Steelers
Oh,
only have the
with
logo?
the Steelers,
Yeah.
I do not know that story. I think I knew it at one point, but I don't recollect
Okay.
what it is.
I don't know what it
When
is.
they
I'm surprised.
originally did that.
Yeah, it's crazy, and it's kind of their thing, which is great. A lot of people don't think about it, but it's you know, I've worked with people that love symmetry and people that love asymmetry. So it's a fun little thing. All right, this guy here. Um,
Yes,
do
sweetness.
we think that if Walter Payton was squirting his head with a water bottle on the side of on the bench during the game, that this card would be as popular as it is? But because this photograph is amazing, right?
Yeah, maybe not. I mean, obviously he was one of the greats of all time, but like you said, this is just a fantastic picture.
Yeah, I think football suffers from well, all the sports did in the '70s, especially basketball. But I think they weren't the greatest pictures back then, and in a world of high def and digital photography like we have now, this is to be expected. But I think that that's a beautiful photo for sure. Obviously, training camp photo,
That's
I
right.
guess, but. And as we know back then, no rookie cards, true rookie cards, because they usually had a year under their belt. How did he do his first year there? He got 670 something yards or 870 something yards, 3.5 yards per carry, 7 touchdowns, I think. So
Yeah,
yeah, just a
that's
guy trying to make
just
the team
uh,
out of a small college, right?
Jackson
Uh,
State.
yeah, Jackson State. Now tell me about. I brought up 2 cards, Ira Gordon and John, whatever his name is there, McCannon,
McMakin.
McMakin. All
McMakin.
right. What's so special about these cards? And I thought I could stump you, but I couldn't. Tell me what's so special about these cards.
Yeah, so this was in 1976. That was the first year of the Seattle Seahawks and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So these would be the first official cards because of the number of the Seattle Seahawks and the Tampa Bay
Yeah.
Buccaneers.
Yeah, I think they're in the 60s, right? I think 64
Yeah,
and
yeah,
66 or something like that.
something
Yeah.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And what retrospectively, an awesome thing would have been to have Tops didn't do this. Tops didn't really celebrate the game off the field much. It would have been great to have like a photograph of these teams, you know,
Mm,
like they're, just a picture of Tops recognizing that we're having new teams come in or something like that, whether
that
it's
would
this
be great.
stadium or the ownership shaking hands with Pete Rozelle or something. But this is how we find out that there's Buccaneers and Seahawks out in the wild. So
And now the Buccaneers were terrible, right?
yeah, I
But
don't think they won. 0-14, I think
they
they
went
went.
0-14 that year and then lost.
A couple more.
Yeah, I think more than a couple more. I think they lost 21 straight before they finally won a game.
If I'm not
21,
mistaken,
22 straight.
yeah, Steve Spurrier was part of that, I think, right? And then I think he was an
Was
early
it?
Buccaneer. Just my
Uh,
gut reaction.
so originally he was with the 49ers, and
Right.
on the 76 card he's a 49er.
Oh, is he really? Okay, I got you.
Yeah.
Well, now I'm going to Google something, man. We'll see what happens
Trying to
here.
remember who was the quarterback for the Bucks. in
Wasn't Steve
'76. You
DeBerg,
might be
right?
right for some
Let me see here. Steve Spurrier, the old ball coach.
old ball
Here we
coach.
go. We're going to look at his records right here live. If you can have a cat moment, I'm going to have a Steve Spurrier moment.
Okay.
Boy, that's college player. Yeah, I don't know, man. Let me see. They don't like to talk about his. They don't like to talk about his playing days because he kind of
Yeah,
underperformed. Let's
he
see
did.
here. University of Florida, National Football League, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. April '76, he was sent to the expansion Tampa Bay Bucks.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so they cut him on April 1977. He was puzzled and disappointed. He said, "This is after
After
Noah."
going 0 and 14.
Exactly. Oh, that's some great stuff. Yeah. So, and I guess that leads to you got to mention John McKay there too about the execution, his team's execution, right?
Yeah.
He's all for it.
Yeah.
What do we have next? A couple actors in there.
Yep.
I can name one show. I can name the show Ed Marinero was on. Can you name the show Fred Dryer was on?
Oh gosh, what was the name of that show?
Yeah, I should have looked that up, Chris. Let's
What
see.
was that show? I cannot remember it.
Now, do you know the one Ed Marinero was in?
I do not
That
know
was
it
Hill
at all.
Street Blues, so
Hill
which is
Street Blues. That's right.
a
Right.
legendary show. And I'm stalling for Dryer, but it was a show with one name on it, whatever it was called.
Yeah.
Hunter, I guess is what it
Hunter.
was. There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, there we go. Two actors in there. So this set is loaded with all sorts of fun stuff. Jamming on here. I'm gonna jam through some of the stuff. Now, Greg Pruitt, probably my favorite card from the 70s football. That's one of those action shots, and I don't know why I love that card. Orange pants, maybe with the brown shirt, in action, the way he was holding that thing out there like a dirty diaper.
Yeah.
He was a good running back, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. He was a
Yeah.
very good running back.
Played on. I guess he was playing with Brian Sipe, but yeah, that's one of my. It's one of my favorite football cards of that era. That's for sure.
I think because there are so few of the action shots in 1976, those really stand out in the set.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
you
for
have
sure.
this, Billy Kilmer is an action shot.
Yeah,
Ken Stabler, I can't remember if it's an action shot or it might be kind of him warming up.
right.
Um,
And again, I'll say it all the time. How hard was it to shoot action photos back then? I mean, they had a little bit of an advantage because all the games were day games, or most of the games were day games. But man,
mhm.
you get however many rolls in the film, anywhere
Yeah.
from 12 to 36. There's Bolitnikoff. That says the 70s to me there. Because do you remember him from that first game you watched? Did he stand out at all? Because he was,
Well, he was the MVP.
yeah,
Interestingly enough, he was the MVP of that game. But I was so young and new to it, I didn't really know the different players and what they were doing.
best receiver of the 70s, you think?
Um,
We can come back to
Quite
that if you want.
possibly,
Yeah,
definitely up
yeah,
there. Lance Allworth was more early '70s.
right.
Uh,
Got
but
an award named after him, Chris.
he might, yeah. It's hard for me to argue that. You're
Yeah,
probably right.
yeah. Good times, man. George Blanda says goodbye to us finally, right after
Yeah.
what's the first Blanda card you have? The oldest one you have?
So the very first Blanda card that I got was from that kid in my class. He had a 1955 Bowman.
Oh my gosh.
So when I got this 1976 Topps card, I was comparing the pictures, and it's like night and day. That was kind of my first experience of realizing people grow old.
Yeah, how about that, huh? Looks like a coach there, right? He's probably
Yeah,
and he might be older than some of the coaches, but that guy was playing football, right? He was I don't know when he
yeah.
stopped. He was a center as well. Is that what he was?
So he was a quarterback and
Quarterback, okay.
kicker.
When did he stop quarterbacking? Do we know?
Hmm, I'm not sure.
Okay, but yeah, it's crazy. I know he was kicker, but man, it's absolutely
Yeah,
crazy. And Gary Premium, of course,
yeah.
charter member of the Drunk Uncle Club. Who did he make that big blunder kick? Was he on the Redskins at that point, or was it against the Redskins?
It was against the
Against the
Redskins.
Redskins, huh? Was that a Super Bowl?
That was the Super Bowl.
That's
Yes, their
amazing. Huh?
undefeated season. He almost
Oh
blew
my
their
gosh,
undefeated season.
it's crazy, man! Absolutely crazy. So, there are a lot of rookie cards in here. Probably almost a quarter of the set are rookie cards, and of course,
Really?
no, yeah, 119 out of 528 compared, according to Beckett OPG. One of the ones I like is Robert Newhouse because Robert
Yes.
Newhouse was another one of those guys that he didn't get the love that some of the other guys did, but he just a
Great.
little guy who could run, right?
Yeah.
And he would
Threw a touchdown in the Super Bowl.
did he really?
Yeah, Super
Oh my God,
Bowl
that's crazy.
12.
Jack Lambert in there. A lot of your Cowboys are in there, right? Randy White from Delaware, Ed
Mhm.
Too Tall Jones, Harvey Martin. Um,
Yep.
one of my Eagles in there, though he's a Ram, Ron Jaworski. So thing was loaded with some great players. A rookie card that gets overlooked is probably the Randy Gradishar. Do you think he belongs in the Hall of Fame?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you think he?
I'm a big Hall guy, though.
Right.
So, but I do think he deserves to be in there.
Well, I thought he was probably my number one of my number one guys. But now that you broke the news to me that Jim Marshall's not in,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm having a rethink. That's for sure. Hall of Famers in there. What do we think of Hall of Famers? It has 70 Hall of Famers, and of course that includes the record breakers and all that stuff. So there's a lot of those old names from the 70s. Of course, Bradshaw is a big name, but guys like
Yep.
Ted Hendricks and Franco's in there. Obviously, he just passed away.
Yep.
All those guys, young Lynn Swan, all that stuff. What's your boy? This is an obvious question, so it shouldn't take that long. Your favorite card from the set is
Okay. This is not an easy one, actually.
okay. All right.
So I have a little bit of a story. Obviously, I love the Walter Payton
Uh
card,
huh.
but I also, when I was a kid, so my first packs were 1980. I'm almost 100% sure of
Okay.
that. But when I was a kid, I had.
Oh yeah, yeah. Let me get that. I'll get that up on the screen there. Look at
I
that,
had
man.
a 1976 Dick Anderson card in my toy box,
Right.
and I have no idea where it came from. It was the only card I had in there, and it could have
Wow.
possibly been my older brother's, but he did not collect cards. Um, so I remember that card, and the reason I remember it is he looks a little bit like my dad
Oh really?
when my dad was young. So I kind of always liked that card, and so it's kind of a special card to me, really. And Dick Anderson is kind of famous for having 4 interceptions on a Monday night football game
Oh my
against the
gosh.
Pittsburgh Steelers. He had 4 interceptions in a game and ran 2 of them back for touchdowns.
So what was going on with the Dolphins safeties? Right. They need neither one of them had hair. Right. Was Jake
Yeah,
Scott the other one? It was
Jake Scott. Yeah. Oh
how that.
wait, I think Jake Scott might have had hair.
I don't know,
I don't
man. They look
remember.
a lot. The Dolphins.
A lot of the players on the Dolphins didn't have hair.
A lot
Bob
of the Dolphins
Kuechenberg was kind of
backfield.
losing his, and
They
there were
look
a
a lot
couple
like
others.
this. They look a lot like this panel right here, right now.
Yeah.
Jake Scott was he wasn't perfect in the head area. He was
Okay.
losing some stuff. He had some big mutton chops. So you're right. Maybe it was Dick Anderson I was thinking of, but Jake Scott's got some drunk uncle pictures where he's got the sideburns and his hair's just hanging on barely. So
So speaking of hair, get a load of this picture here.
hold on a sec. Oh my god, look at that, man.
Look at that mustache.
It's incredible.
How do you get that much hair to grow on your lip?
That's amazing, man.
That's amazing. And
What team
he
is that?
was
Is
a
that the
he was a really
Cardinals?
good football player. That's the Kansas City
And he
Chiefs.
and
Ed Podolak.
so throw that up there again. I want to see that card again because there's no number on that jersey. Is this guy not making the
Yeah.
team or?
Oh no, he was a great.
Yeah.
Sorry about the
No,
glare.
that's all right, man. Yes,
He
look at
was
that,
he
man.
was actually, so he holds the record for most
That's great.
all-purpose yards in a game, and he
Huh.
set that in the 1971 playoff game against the Miami Dolphins. It's the longest game in football history.
You're saying most all-purpose yards,
Most all-purpose yards. I think it was 350.
all returns, huh? And
Not all
was
returns.
he a
So
DB and he had an interception? I guess, huh?
no. So he was a running back also. So
Oh, okay.
he
I
had. I
got you.
think it was I think it was 85 yards rushing, maybe 115 pass receiving, and then
Oh,
the rest
wow.
return yards.
And they were good Chiefs teams back then too, right?
Yeah, they were. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they could have. I mean, they won the one Super Bowl, and a lot of people thought they should have won more.
Right.
Had they beaten that Dolphins team that year, maybe they would have won the Super Bowl that year.
Now, was Shula on board at that point in 1970?
So that was 71,
That was
and
71. Okay.
I think that was
I
his
guess he would have been, right?
first year,
Okay.
maybe his first year.
Yeah, because you didn't hear a lot of noise from the Dolphins before Shula came on board, I don't think.
No, they
Yeah.
were not very good.
All right, I've got a couple questions for you here that one you can't get wrong, and the other one you can get wrong. Who is the what's your favorite band, Chris?
Oh, I don't really have a favorite.
Okay.
That's like asking me to pick between my kids, I think.
Who's your
Uh,
favorite kid? Is that easier?
um, I do. I was a kind of a 70s rock
Right.
person.
Let me hear it.
Uh,
Give me something.
Led Zeppelin,
Oh,
obvious.
okay. All right.
Um, Pink Floyd
Oh
was
my God.
good.
You're my
Um,
favorite guest ever. You know
I
that?
going back even to the 60s, I like bands like Cream and
Well,
bands like that
I
kind
didn't
of
hear you. Who did you mention from the 60s? Oh,
Cream.
Cream. There you go, man. You're a renaissance man, that's for sure. Between your old football cards and your old bands. Now, who is the greatest basketball player of all time?
Where am I from?
You
North
may
Carolina.
all right. Give me
That's your answer, Michael Jordan.
all right, you got that one right. That's the one you can get wrong, but you got that one right. So, well done on that. Uh tell me what your favorite sports card of all time is that you have. Actually, maybe that you have or you don't have. Tell me
Hmm.
what is your favorite sports card of all time? You have because you have a man, get a deep ocean you fish in, so
Yeah, I think if my dream card, if I could have any card out there, it would be the 1914 Baltimore News Babe Ruth
Babe
card.
Ruth. Yeah. That's making quite a rumpus right now. And it's interesting because some people call it the rookie cards, but I think the rookie card designation doesn't come into play until the 33 Gaudy. But yeah, that's a good one, man. That's for sure. I've heard a lot about that one lately.
Pretty
So
sure I'll never have it, but
yeah, you can
you know,
dream, man. So tell me about we're going to wrap up here because I've kept you too long. Monday cardboard masterpiece. I think that's absolutely brilliant where you just get with a card and talk about its beauty. What was your inspiration for that?
you know, I think over the last, I would say, 3 or 4 years, I have really kind of started really enjoying the just the design and the artwork on cards more and more. I think I've always enjoyed it, but more and more, I really am starting to love it. And watching people like Terry just kind of describe cards and have that same eye for it. And people like Picker Jim
Right, right.
and there are a lot of other guys who really look at the aesthetics of the card and just kind of the design and the artwork of them. And I was like, you know what, this would be a great thing to do.
Well, I appreciate you doing that because as we know, people see things differently. So it's fun to see that, and that points out things that maybe I can't see or don't see at first glance because our minds and our eyes all work differently. So I appreciate you doing that. I appreciate all your videos. I watch with fascination because it just blows me away. You know, I'm looking at your menu right here, the 55 tops All American set, stuff like that. It's just keep up the great work, man. It's appreciated, and I know it's not easy at times. This content creation thing can be tough to do sometimes, but I appreciate what you do, and I
Thank you.
appreciate you
I
coming
appreciate
by
that.
because you know, again, this is a series of collectors that whose brains I wanted to pick and see why you chose sets that you did from the 70s. So it's been fascinating for me, and I'm going to get you out of here. I've had you too long. If you have any last words you want to say?
I don't think so. I think we covered quite a bit.
Cool. Well, I'm going to take you off air. Chris from Stories and Cardboard on YouTube. I urge everybody to go there immediately. Run, don't walk. And Chris, thanks again. I'll take you off, and then I'll see you in a second. All right.
Thank you, John.
All right, buddy. So thanks again for joining this week on my journey back in time. If you have a comment or suggestion or something you want me to take a look at with someone under the sheets, just reach out to me at ThatSeventiesCardShow at gmail.com, 70s Card on Twitter, or that 70s Card Show on YouTube. Music by Mango Safari on the podcast. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Chris. Be safe, enjoy collecting, and more importantly, enjoy your collection.